Time and time again, when I make these videos, I find myself falling into a bit of a format. Talk a little about the subject at hand, ask a few questions regarding said subject, and then lead into the video. And today's no different. I just mention it because I hope that it makes for a compelling video each time, and talking about it to myself like this in stream of consciousness really provides good feedback, I feel like. So, anime. You know it. You love it. But amongst the ever-growing ocean that is the anime medium, there are bound to be some stinkers. I know you've had to have at least heard or seen at least one of these anime that are bad, right? Shows like Gundress, Vampire Homes, Gamers, and there's a ton more that I could think of if I just gave it some more time. But one trend that I've noticed within the last few years are the anime that are typically slice of life / isekai that have enormous titles. Here's an example so I don't have to type out or say too many of these. Failure Frame. I became the strongest and annihilated everything with my low-level spells. Or how about a popular show that is actually good? Is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon? This trend has gotten so bad actually that you could honestly just throw some words together and make up an anime title. You know what? Here, I'll do it right now. How about something like Pixel Quest? The YouTuber's codex to becoming the best there ever was, with just a few subscribers. Like, it's just ridiculous like that. The reason I bring this up is because last year I found and was unable to finish one of these shows with a ridiculously long title because I genuinely believe that this is the most dog anime I've ever watched. And I've watched some real stinkers. So today, I want to take you through Season 1 of what is, in my opinion, the worst anime ever. And that's disregarding ones that are bad for the sake of being bad. Ladies and gentleworms, let me introduce you to BOFURI. I don't want to get hurt, so I'll max out my defense. And before we continue, if you like videos like this and you want to see more in the future, don't forget to hit the like button down below for me. Make sure you are subscribed, that way you know when each and every single one of my videos comes out. And let's continue. One thing I'd like to keep in mind before really diving in, Sally, the best friend to the protagonist, is a professional gamer. And I'd like us to all keep that in our minds for the rest of the video. Maple, however, the main character, doesn't play games. She has poor hand-eye coordination and poor game sense. So, as a way to be useful and avoid taking damage as much as possible because she doesn't like being hurt, Maple chooses to start off her journey with the Great Shield. After dumping all of her stats into Vitality and realizing she can barely move, Maple decides to level up in the forest nearby, and this is where the problems already arise. And it's only 8 minutes into the first episode. First, she goes to train with the intention of increasing her movement speed, but when she levels up, she just dumps it all into Vitality anyways. Second, and honestly more disturbing, is the fact that we're shown you can gain resistances and immunities to things like poison if you take enough damage from those hits and survive. And what does our protagonist have? A lot of HP. Again, I haven't even finished the show as I'm writing the script, and I already know that this is going to lead to her having resistance to essentially everything. Afterwards, Maple lands herself a ring that restores health from an enemy drop, makes some new friends, and then heads to the Poison Dragon's lair. And you'd think to yourself, okay, sure, she has good HP and poison resistance, but it's a dragon, and she's like level 8. Surely she gets put in her place at this point, right? Instead, what we get is a combination of potion spamming until she becomes completely immune to poison. Okay, now the dragon can't poison her, but what can she do in return? Oh, I don't know, how about eat the dragon? Let's back up and put a little perspective on this. A newbie player who doesn't game at all and has no game sense was able to farm rare items, gain immunities from happenstance, and then they defeated a dragon by eating it all on their own at level 8. What the f is happening? The episode ends with her gaining the ability to use poison over a large area, eat things to gain new powers, and gets a legendary one-of-a-kind armor set that auto-heals itself when it's damaged. Does this not sound ridiculous? Like, Imagine if Dragon Ball Z had started, Raditz kidnapped Gohan and Goku was giving him the chase, but instead of it being a hard-fought battle, Goku was given instant transmission, Spirit Bomb, Kaioken, and let's say Super Saiyan transformation from the jump. Would that be interesting? No, it wouldn't. The whole point is to watch a journey of growth, but instead what we have here is a journey of someone plummeting into success by accident. Side note, as a way to make sure the video doesn't last over 30 minutes, I'm going to try and push through some of the few episodes that don't have much happening, so if there isn't much of a description for an episode, you know why. Episode 2 is really just Maple gaining new, broken abilities, gaining a high place in her server during an event, and then her friend Sally finally joins the game. Episode 3 is nothing but world building and meeting some new people. However, I will say that the end of the episode has a really cool idea for a consumable item that temporarily changes the model color, like your eyes and your hair, for example. This tiny detail has been the best part of the show up to this point. Episode 4 has a bit more action as Maple and Sally are brought face to face with a wild Articuno that does seem to give Maple a little trouble, but ultimately nothing stops her. Seriously, at this point she can already teleport, she practically takes no damage, and can kill almost anything that touches her shield a certain number of times a day. After defeating the wild Pokemon, Maple and Sally are actually rewarded with Pokemon eggs of their own. Episode 5 is really just a continuation of the previous episode as Maple and Sally fight several more dungeons and bosses. However, the Pokemon have finally hatched, and Maple got a small turtle companion named Syrup. Cute, Maple and Syrup. Ordinarily, these types of summons either provide support for players or do some damage, and Syrup can definitely do that. However, it feels like the writers for this show want to take the brokenness of Maple and apply it to Syrup as well. Not only is Syrup able to use gigantification to become the size of something like Appa from the Avatar, but at any point in time, Maple can use psychokinesis on Syrup, lifting her into the air and using her like a blimp. Or can turn the same powers off while in the air and turn her turtle into a tactical nuke. Combine this with things like Poison Ring that can be summoned from atop Syrup, and it's very easy to see how out of hand this newbie player is becoming. Episode 6 is just a slice of life episode as Maple and Sally officially start a guild for themselves, buy a house, and recruit some members. I will say I do like the base of operations for the group and how everything ties back to the word Maple in some way, but that's the only neat part of this episode. So at this point, if things weren't already considered insane, Episode 7 is where everything really starts to change for the worse, in my opinion. During some dungeon grinding, Maple gets access to an ability called Loving Sacrifice that allows her to trade a small amount of her HP to create a large AoE circle of protection around her that protects her allies from all damage. With an ability like this, she can have rogues and wizards in her party, but they'll have practically the defense of a paladin, so long as they stick close by. Episode 8 has Maple going up against a demon lord who seems to give her trouble for a short period of time, but after Syrup spams Pokemon moves like Frenzy Plant and Solar Beam to weaken the demon, Maple is able to get the one up on the demon by, you guessed it, eating it. Once again, eating her competition out of existence and gaining a new ability called Seeping Chaos. With this, Maple can now summon creatures to defend in front of her, acting as both a form of defense and mid-range offense. And the ability to turn into a literal kaiju. In the very same episode, Maple also fights an enemy known as the King of Scrap. Without question, she defeats the creature and gains another broken ability, this time called Machine God. With this, Maple turns into a gun goddess. She essentially looks like a Yu-Gi-Oh monster at this point. With this, Maple has all the crazy mech and laser powers you would expect her to have, making her even more overpowered than she already was. Now, along with total protection, she actually has tactical nukes. Episode 9 is pretty uneventful. The new Machine God power gets shown off a bit, and then this leads into your stereotypical beach episode for another 2 minutes for some reason. Afterwards, there's another multi-guild event, pitting the guilds against each other. but there is absolutely no tension whatsoever as Maple's entire crew is protected from any kind of damage while they're around her. Episode 10 has the multi-guild event continuing, and for once there actually feels like there might be some tension as the group is split up and unable to rely on Maple for protection. But ultimately the fights end up in our protagonist's favor, and no one is worse for wear. Episode 11 starts with Maple fighting against the leader of the Flame Emperor Guild, and seems to be having trouble the entire time until she pulls out the Machine God armor and just absolutely obliterates everything in her path. I will say this is the first episode that feels like a good anime episode in terms of animation and choreography, but the ass pull of the Machine God armor as a form in general does still show the lack of writing skills by the crew. The episode ends with a little tension as it seems like the #1 guild, named Holy Sword, is being driven into and looking forward to conflict with Maple and crew, and it is unsure whether or not the Maple Tree Guild is strong enough to take on Holy Sword. And finally, we reach the 12th episode. The moment where all of the writing and drama culminates into one epic payoff. Tensions rise as the fight continues with Holy Sword and their leader, Pain. Now, Pain has been glazed several times in the show to be the best player on the server, and it seems these words may be true as he's cutting through the entirety of Maple Tree Guild with relative ease. A few members are seemingly taken out, and it doesn't seem as if our heroes will be able to win this fight, as Pain is able to overcome any defensive moves Maple has. Finally, for once in the show, since the beginning moments with the Poison Dragon, it feels as if Maple has finally met her match. But instead, Maple transforms into her kaiju form once again and just eats and crushes everyone in a very unceremonious fashion. The rest of the episode is just Maple Tree Guild going around and taking out other guilds for the conclusion of the event, and ends with a celebration amongst the top 3 guilds to commemorate the end. All in all, this is a very turn your brain off and enjoy it type of anime, one that's copy and pasted several times from previous works but very clearly shows its roots. I will say that the animation for the show is pretty good, but that's also kind of very basic. You need good animation for the most part to stand out nowadays. Everything feels static aside from the character that's currently talking, and to me, that's a telltale sign of an anime being of a bit lower quality, especially for anime being released around post-2020. The character designs are cute, and I do like how they don't over-sexualize everything like I expected them to, but the main issue with the show is the writing and the pacing. Again, Sally, who is supposed to be a professional gamer, is #2 in the guild, and it's by a very wide margin. Maple must have a secret luck skill that's just super high, because from the jump she was collecting rare items, skills, and defeating bosses in ways that I guarantee no other player would try to think. This in turn rewards her with unique skills, but if the skills she's gaining break the game, then why are they in the game in the first place? Maple is portrayed in the opening moments of the show as someone who is timid and ultimately doesn't want to get hurt. She doesn't play games, so really she shouldn't have much of a sense of what to do without Sally's help, but by talking to just a few people and farming just a few rare items, was able to take place in the top 3 of the first event of the server. As a first-time player, if the story after this was Maple being targeted because of her innate skill, or actually losing once or twice to cause some internal conflict within the Maple Tree Guild, then maybe my gripes about the show wouldn't be as bad. But seriously, they gave this shit a Season 2, but the entirety of Season 1 is just beat/eat the enemy, get new power, use power to win. New enemy, new power up. And it's not like Dragon Ball or any type of typical shonen manga where there's training or struggle of any kind involved. Instead, these powers are obtained and stackable immediately and just make the character in question overpowered for the sake of being overpowered. And if anything, maybe I could give a pass if Maple was just a bad gamer and utilized her skills poorly, like a new player would. But instead, she's written with such tactical skill and forethought that it feels as if Maple should be a professional gamer. All in all, I give the show like a 4 out of 10. The animation is good, but if it wasn't, it likely wouldn't be on the market anyways. The writing is atrocious and needs a lot of work. The characters themselves are all well designed, and I think that if the writing of the show picks up, this could actually be a fun little show to watch. However, if it stands the way it is now, it's easily one of the worst I've ever seen and would not recommend anybody picking it up. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit the like button down below for me. Make sure you're subscribed, that way you know when each and every single one of my videos comes out. I'm trying to hit 500 subscribers before the end of the year. So, if you have any ideas, leave them down in the comment section below. And I will see you all next time.